You are listening to the broadcast from beyond. This is Mysterious Journeys and True Life Stories. Good evening, friends and journey seekers alike. We are so pleased to have you aboard our vessel of travel tonight as we traverse the universe beyond the stars for the truth. Won't you join us? And now, here is your host, Michael Hart.
Well, a good evening to you, journey seekers, and we thank you for joining us for another episode tonight. We're going to talk about the strange case of Elisa Lam. If you remember that story, it was in 2013, I believe. And, well, there's some odd things that never came to fruition about her death. Very strange circumstances surrounding it. But we're going to talk about that tonight. And the weather, by the way, has been just fantastic. It's cool out right now. I'm not sure of the current temperature right now, but it feels like fall out. And it has for the past couple of nights. So, a cool 65, I think it was last night, or was it 56? I think it was 56. Nice. Seems like all this rain has brought the dry weather to us. So, we're going to talk about all of that and then more when we return from this break. So don't miss it, right here on Mysterious Journeys and True Life Stories.
Everyone likes free stuff. I know I do. There are two things I like to hear that comes with the word free. Free music and royalty-free music. That's right. Now that's having your cake and eating it too. That's why I want to take the time to tell you about an offer you can't refuse. If you're a podcaster, filmmaker, or YouTube video creator looking for great-sounding background music, soundtracks, or bumper music, then Royalty Free Planet is the place for you. They have hundreds of artists and genres to choose from, with categories ranging from hip-hop, trap, dubstep to modern dance tracks, rock, and even 80s style synthscapes. It's what I use as bumper tracks for my show, and if you're a podcaster, you'll love the high-quality sound of these talented artists who have worked hard to bring us their music and offer a copyright-free advantage to make your project sound great. Just remember to give these artists the credit by listing the name of the artist and song title. It's the least we could do in return for their hard-earned efforts to bring you pro sounds at no cost or copyright cost to you. So check out their YouTube channel and listen to the variety of excellent selections they offer at Royalty Free Planet. That's Royalty Free Planet. You'll be glad you did, and they will too.
Well, welcome back, and we're back on to our topic. And that topic tonight will be the Elisa Lam case. Very interesting story. Unlike most I've heard in quite some time. And you know, it kind of lines up with some of the things that David Paulides talks about in his Missing 411 books. Maybe not exactly, but there are some similarities. For instance, when she was found in the water tank above the Cecil Hotel, there was, her clothes were off, her shoes were off in the water, floating next to her. And mind you, this water is the water that the hotel gets through their tap system. So when you take a bath or a shower, drink water from the faucet, you're getting the water from the tanks above the building. And you got a dead body floating around in there for weeks. It's a sobering thought, isn't it? I would say that it is. Benjamin Dodick, in September 1932, he was a maid found dead at the age of 25, self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. It didn't leave a suicide note, though. He was just found that way. In late July 1934, former Army Medical Corps Sergeant Louis Borden, 53 years of age, was found dead in his room at the Cecil. He had slashed his throat with a razor. Borden left several notes, one of which cited poor health as a reason for his suicide. And in March 1937, Grace E. Margro fell from a 9th-story window. Her fall was broken by telephone wires which were wrapped around her body. She later died at the now-demolished Georgia Street Receiving Hospital. Police were unable to determine whether Margot's death was the result of an accident or suicide. And in 1938, Marine fireman Roy Thompson, 35 years of age, jumped from Cecil's top floor and was found on the skylight of a neighboring building. He had been staying at the Cecil for several weeks. 1939, Navy officer Irwin C. Neblett, he was 39 years old in 1939, was found dead in his room after ingesting poison. And there's another, and it goes on and on and on. Most people either jumped from the window of the 7th floor room or killed themselves and suicide. All of them seem to be not related, but self-inflicted, which is very strange. So the Cecil Hotel has a dark past, most definitely. On February 2013, February 19th, the naked body of Elisa Lam, a 21-year-old Canadian student, was found inside one of the water supply tanks on the hotel roof. Lam had gone missing almost 3 weeks earlier on January 31st, 2013. Her decomposing body was discovered by a maintenance worker in one of the rooftop water tanks after guests had complained about low water pressure and water that tasted funny. Authorities later ruled Lam's death as an accidental drowning. Video surveillance footage taken from inside an elevator shortly before her disappearance showed Lam acting strangely, pressing multiple elevator buttons, hiding in the corner of the elevator, and waving her arms wildly, causing widespread speculation about the cause of her death. After the elevator video was made public, many theories arose about Lam's death. Lam was reported to have been bipolar, for which she was prescribed various medications, which could have contributed to her death, as well as her strange behavior in the elevator. I don't know. I don't know if that's possible with what she was taking. And I do have a list, according to the coroner report, that details the drugs that she had been on or she had been taking. And it was mild. Elisa Lam, also known by her Cantonese name, Lam Ho Yi, April 30th, 1991. February 2013. A Canadian student at the University of British Columbia in Vancouver was recovered from a water tank atop the Cecil Hotel in downtown Los Angeles on February 19th, 2013. She had been reported missing at the beginning of the month. Maintenance workers at the hotel discovered the body when investigating guest complaints of problems with the water supply. And her disappearance had been widely reported. Interest had increased 5 days prior to her body's discovery, when the Los Angeles Police Department released video of the last time she was known to have been seen. On the day of her disappearance, by an elevator security camera. In the footage, Lam is seen exiting and re-entering the elevator, talking and gesturing in the hallway outside, and sometimes seeming to hide within the elevator, which itself appears to be malfunctioning. The video went viral on the internet, with many viewers reporting that they had found it unsettling. Explanations range from claims of paranormal involvement to bipolar disorder. It has also been argued that the video was altered prior to release. The circumstances of Lam's death, once she was found, also raise questions, especially in light of the Cecil's history in relation to other notable deaths and murders. Her body was naked, with most of her clothes and personal effects floating in the water near her. It took the Los Angeles County Coroner's Office 4 months, after repeated delays, to release the autopsy report, which reports no evidence of physical trauma and states that the manner of death was accidental. Guests at the Cecil, now rebranded as Stay on Main, as a name, I guess, for the hotel, sued the hotel over the incident, and Lam's parents filed a separate suit later that year. The latter was dismissed in 2015. Some of the early internet interests noted that were considered to be unusual similarities between Lam's death and the 2005 horror film Dark Water. The case has since been referenced in international popular culture. And a little bit of background on Lam. She was the daughter of immigrants from Hong Kong who opened a restaurant in Burna Bay, just outside Vancouver, Canada. Was a student at the University of British Columbia, although she was not registered at the beginning of 2013. She traveled alone on Amtrak and intercity buses. She visited the San Diego Zoo and posted photos taken there on social media. On January 26, she arrived in Los Angeles. After 2 days, she checked into the Cecil Hotel near downtown's Skid Row. She was initially assigned a shared room on the hotel's 5th floor. However, her roommates complained about what the hotel's lawyer would later describe as certain odd behavior. She was moved to a room of her own after 2 days. Built as a business hotel in the 1920s, the Cecil fell on hard times during the Great Depression of the 1930s and never recaptured its original market as downtown decayed around it in the late 20th century. Several of Los Angeles's more notable murders have happened at or have connections to the hotel in 1964. Goldie Osgood, the Pigeon Lady of Pershing Square, was raped and murdered in her room at the Cecil, a crime that has never been solved. Serial killers Jack Unterweger and Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, both resided at the Cecil while active. There have also been suicides, one of which also killed a pedestrian in the front of the hotel. After renovations, it has tried to market itself as a boutique hotel. But the reputation lingers. The Cecil will reveal to you whatever it is you're a fugitive from, says Steve Erickson, a journalist who spent the night in the hotel after Lam's death. Lam had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder and depression. She had been prescribed 4 medications. And those medications were, and that's what we were talking about earlier, Wellbutrin, Lamictal, Seroquel, and Effexor to treat her disorders, according to her family, who supposedly kept her history of mental illness a secret. She had no history of suicidal ideations or attempts, although one report claims she had previously gone missing for a brief period. In mid-2010, she began a blog named Ether Fields on Blogspot. Over the next 2 years, she posted pictures of models in fashionable clothing and accounts of her life, particularly her struggle with mental illness. In a January 2012 blog post, Lam lamented that a relapse at the start of the current school term had forced her to drop several classes, leaving her feeling so utterly directionless and lost. She titled her post, "You're always haunted by the idea you're wasting your life," after a quotation from novelist Chuck Palahniuk. She used the quote as an epigraph for her blog. She worried that her transcript would look suspicious with so many withdrawals, and that it would result in her being unable to continue her studies and attend graduate school. A little over 2 years after Lam had started blogging, she announced that she would be abandoning her blog for another. She had started on Tumblr. Its content mostly consisted of fashion photos and quotes and a few posts in Lam's own words. The same Polaniak quote was used as an epigraph. And in her disappearance, it was a little bit of time between the infamous elevator video caught by security camera and the time between then, and that was the night that she supposedly was believed to have somehow made it into the tank, to the water tank on the top roof. Now, you have to think, the doors were locked. I think that she had to go through 2 or 3 locked security doors to get to the water tank. And then she had to have had access to some sort of ladder or something to climb up on the top of the tank, which was a very small opening. You know, it was a rectangle type of opening on the top of the tank. Now, why would anyone go to the roof and jump into a water tank? What, to swim? Of course not. Something else happened there. But her body, the coroner's report said there were no, as far as her, decomposition time, there was really no visible evidence that she had been harmed by another person. It's very strange. Did she just jump into the tank and drowned? Obviously, I don't believe that. But either way, it's a very strange case, and one that we can't seem to find an answer to. Police searched the hotel to the extent that they legally could. They searched Lam's room and had dogs go through the building, including the rooftop, but the canines were unsuccessful in detecting her scent. But we didn't search every room, Sergeant Rudy Lopez later said. We could only do that if we had probable cause to believe a crime had been committed. On February 6, a week after Lam had last been seen, the LAPD decided more help was needed. Flyers with her image were posted in the neighborhood and online. It brought the case to the public's attention through the media. We have some video here. I have a news video here to play for you, and I think it's just a few seconds or so. Well, actually, about a minute or two. So we're going to go ahead and play that.
For weeks, questions have circled about Elisa Lam after the Vancouver woman went missing in Los Angeles last month. Yesterday, police found her body in a hotel water tank, and that's just raised even more questions.
A maintenance worker discovered her body after guests complained about low water pressure. It turns out that was the least of their problems. Tourists staying at the hotel bathed, brushed their teeth, and drank water from the tank in which this woman's body was decomposing, they believe, for weeks.
Adding to the mystery, surveillance video from the hotel elevator, the last known pictures of Elisa Lam. They show her pushing buttons in the elevator, hiding, looks like she's hiding there, waiting in the hallway for somebody, and then at one point waving her arms around. We know that she came to Los Angeles about 4 days prior to when she was reported missing. Not quite sure why she came here or whether she visited anyone here.
Either she met with foul play, or somehow the 21-year-old would have had to have gotten through locked doors onto the roof, avoided tripping an alarm, and then climbed up inside the water tank.
And that was a little news brief of the case. But what I can't figure out is how she got through the doors. They were locked. I don't know exactly how many doors there were, but something like 2, I think. And you would need a key to unlock those doors. And then, once you got on the roof, you would need some sort of ladder to get up there on top of the tank. And that, if you've ever seen the opening for that on the top of the tank, it's very small. Now, I know she was a small lady, but I don't see how she could have. I just don't see how she could have climbed up there and jumped in. Makes no sense. That's the thing about this case, is there's too many unanswered questions and weird things about it that are left unanswered, and no one can come to a conclusion about what truly happened to her. It's so odd, but it's creepy too, because when she's on the elevator, it looks like she's having a conversation with someone. I mean, I don't really see her lips moving, but she's doing a lot of hand gesturing. And she steps back into the elevator and looks like she's hiding. When she does step out past the doors and go into the hallway, which the doors never shut, the elevator looks like it had malfunctioned or something. You never see anyone else go past. Nothing. No feet, no shadows, no hands from another person or anything. It's just so strange. And then after that, she meets her demise on the roof in that water tank.
You are listening to the broadcast from beyond. This is Mysterious Journeys and True Life Stories. Have you seen a ghost? Or an apparition? Or perhaps your house might be haunted? Or have you ever looked up into the sky at night and seen lights defying the laws of physics? If you have, I would encourage you to send your stories to me, and I will read them on the air with your consent. Send your stories to oculusmusic@gmail.com. That's oculusmusic@gmail.com. OCULIS music, one word, @gmail.com. I'll be looking forward to your stories.
Well, we have some audio here for you, and it's the retrospective of CBS LA on the Elisa Lam case, and we're going to play that for you.
Well, several years after a young woman was found dead inside a water tank on the roof of a downtown LA hotel, the mystery surrounding her death has only grown. Her name was Elisa Lam, and investigators said she died of an accidental drowning. But is that really what happened? CBS 2's Peter Dow reports.
A grim investigation is unfolding at a downtown LA hotel.
The body of a young woman was found in a water tank.
The body is at the bottom, 6 feet down. 3/4 of the tank is full.
The roof is secured with an alarm and a lock and a key to the door access.
We just saw firefighters pull the body out of the water tank.
How and why Elisa Lam died inside a water tank on the rooftop of the Cecil Hotel in downtown Los Angeles is a mystery. But the mystery has only grown in the 3.5 years since she stepped outside this elevator and disappeared. That security video from the hotel has millions of views on YouTube. A maintenance worker discovered Lam's naked body inside a water tank after guests complained of low water pressure. Despite any signs of foul play, both the LAPD and the LA County Coroner's Office ruled her death an accidental drowning.
The fact that it doesn't feel like a very satisfying conclusion to her story, I think has helped keep it fresh in my mind. But it also just seems almost a dismissive way of looking at her death, of just saying, well, it was an accident, we're done.
Katie Orphan is one of the last known people to see the 21-year-old Canadian tourist alive. Orphan is the manager of a bookstore just a few blocks from the Cecil Hotel and says people from all over the world often visit the store to ask questions about Lam's death.
Mysteries like this should not remain unsolved.
Orphan remembers Lam coming in to buy books and music records for her family in Vancouver and says Lam worried about how she'd be able to fit the items she purchased inside her luggage.
It seemed like she had plans to return home, plans to give things to her family members and reconnect with them.
Days after Lam disappeared during her solo trip to California, the LAPD released this security video. It shows Lam acting strangely, going in and out of the hallway and gesturing wildly. Investigators say Lam suffered from bipolar disorder and listed it as a significant condition for her accidental drowning.
This is a very unusual case.
We showed the autopsy report to Dr. John Heiseroth, the former deputy coroner for Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, who has conducted thousands of autopsies during his career. He says by calling the death an accident, investigators determined it was neither suicide nor homicide.
In my mind, there are some questions that I think need to be answered before you can really determine that this is a accidental drowning.
Among those questions, how Lam ended up inside the tank without her clothes on. Doors and stairs leading to the hotel's roof were locked, with only staff having the passcodes and keys. Any forced entry would have supposedly triggered an alarm. To get there, Lam would have had to climb onto a platform, scale a 10-foot ladder, push aside a 20-pound lid, and then jump inside.
See, I didn't know about the alarms going off at the time she was trying to possibly go through the doors, which were locked when they went up there anyway. So where would she have gotten the key, and how the hell did she get through those doors if she had the key without the alarms being tripped? I didn't know that.
Though Lam was bipolar, proper amounts of prescribed medications were found inside her blood. Based on the autopsy report alone, Heiseroth says it's possible she could have been suffocated by someone who then threw her body inside the tank.
That's why I say the better manner of death in this case is undetermined.
Despite repeated requests, no one from the LAPD or County Coroner's Office would speak with us about the closed case. And though what happened to Elisa Lam after leaving this elevator may always remain a mystery, Katie Orphan says it will forever haunt her.
It should mean something, it should matter, and so people should remember her.
We reached
reached out to Elisa Lam's family and their attorney, but they declined to speak about the case. And so did the Cecil Hotel, which has now been renamed Stay on Main. In downtown LA, Peter Dowd, CBS 2 News.
There's an awful lot of mystery surrounding the case, and of course no one's been able to figure it out since it happened, and that was back in 2013. In the coroner's report, it was stated that she had drugs on her person, not with her at the time, but that's what she had been doing, but they were prescribed drugs for her condition, which, it's not an extreme condition by any stretch of the imagination. It's not something that, you need psychotropic drugs for, where you wouldn't know where the heck you were or where you were going. It doesn't make any sense. And to me, what doesn't add up at all is the size of the towers and how she got up there, the water towers, that is, and how did she get through locked doors without tripping the alarm? Anyway, it kind of reminds me a bit of David Paulides' work with Missing 411. It's not exactly like that, but it sort of fits into that niche. It has a little bit of that spice to it that fits into some of those categories. People going missing in the woods and in state parks. But this, of course, was a completely different scenario altogether. To make matters more odd and strange, the Lam Elisa tuberculosis test, which is what it was called, had no correlation, or at least they claim it had no correlation to Elisa Lam, but they named it the treatment after her, or they didn't name it after her, but it was named Lam Elisa. That's strange. That's beyond strange. One of the many mysteries of what surrounds this case. Not to mention the movie Dark Water that came out in 2005. This happened in 2013. That movie was made in 2005. And it showed, I saw it a long time ago, I don't remember everything about it, and it was obviously before this happened, but it was in a hotel, and the water was tainted by a body floating around in one of those water tanks, like the one on the roof of this hotel. I thought that was peculiar. Now, we have an opinion by the Associate Deputy Medical Examiner, and it reads like this. The decedent died as a result of drowning. A complete autopsy examination showed no evidence of trauma, did not show acute drug or alcohol intoxication. The decedent had a history of bipolar disorder for which she was prescribed medication. Toxicology studies were performed for the presence of these drugs. However, quantitation in the blood was not performed due to limited sample availability. Therefore, interpretation is limited. Police investigation did not show evidence of foul play. A full review of the circumstances of the case and appropriate consultation do not to support intent to harm oneself. The manner of death is classified as an accident. That's all we get. I mean, there's basically what they're saying there is there's no evidence of foul play. No one seems to have been involved, at least that we know of, unless the only two scenarios that I thought best explain this, if it was even possible. And like I said, you have to get through the locked doors, and somehow disable the security alarm system, and then go up to the water tower itself and fit through that tiny opening at the top. Virtually impossible to do. And those two reasons, those two scenarios, which are just myths to me, is that someone within the hotel management or hotel employment had to be an employee that would have the key to unlock those doors and take her up there and do whatever with her, and then put her body into the water tanks. Now, if you work there, you have to know that those tanks supply the water to the rest of the building, obviously. And there would have been some kind of evidence there, whether fingerprints or something else, that would have indicated that someone had partaken in this event with her. The other scenario I had thought of, which is highly unlikely too as well, is she could have made copies of the original keys to get through the door, but still the alarm wasn't tripped, so it's impossible to think that she would have done that. Climbed up there and got inside the water tower, whatever. But it seems infinitely impossible for her to have done that, because, well, she would have had to have had a ladder to climb. Those towers are not as small as you think. They're quite large. They have to supply the water to the building, the fresh water. And that's why they did it a long time ago, back in the 30s and 40s. And that building has a lot of history to it. So, getting through all those doors, and then to the roof, and then to the tower, just so what? She could jump in and commit suicide? Why didn't she just jump off the damn roof? Or better yet, why didn't she just do something to herself in her room? But I'm sure that she wasn't suicidal, and none of her conditions warrant that at all. It's a very, very strange case, one that has never gotten solved, even to this day. And it's one of those things that makes you scratch your head and makes you wonder, wow, what the heck happened between the time she was on the elevator to the time that she ended up on the roof in that tank. Then you have the movie that came out before this actually happened. Then you have the Lam Elisa treatment for tuberculosis in that same district, Skid Row. So It's a big, big mystery. And that's why it's on this show. That's why we played it. With that being said, I think we'll end it here. Have a good night. And leave a light on when you go to sleep.
You have been listening to the broadcast from beyond. This is Mysterious Journeys and True Life Stories. Good night.